So there are billions of debates about this topic that you can find on YouTube.
Sure.
So what do you think about these debates?
Okay.
And should Christians even do these debates?
Okay.
Should anyone do these debates?
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay.
They seem pointless.
Okay.
Because everyone who was gonna go watch them is just there to watch their person beat up the other person. The only way that the only way that these debates make any difference is if you shove them in front of people that didn't know what they were watching in the first place.
Right.
And they get to make an honest
Yeah.
opinion about who won.
Right.
But when they're just on YouTube and the only people going to watch them are people searching for that,
right,
it's completely pointless.
have you seen like the debates, and it's like you'll get clips of the same exact debate, and it'll be like atheist destroys Christian in this debate.
Yeah, and then
the other one is the exact same clip.
It's the exact same clip.
Christian destroys atheist in this debate. Yeah.
I feel like there's people making two accounts to try to
they're making more money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just sitting there in front of their computer like, that's a good point. And then playing more of it.
So
and then they put on a mustache for the Christians. That's a good point.
Yeah, all right. So in the midst of all the insanity and the nonsense of it all, I do actually think there's a place for the debates.
Where?
And so where, just in general, like, so most of the debates are happening, they're being recorded on college campuses or those kind of things. And I do think that can actually be a healthy place for debate, and because it can be informational, it can help you understand where the other side is coming from.
Okay.
So yes, if you're just clicking on the videos that just show your favorite Christian apologist, quote unquote, destroying the atheist, or your favorite, atheist destroying the poor Christian apologist over there, then yeah, you're not going to get much out of it. But if you can sit and listen to both sides, many times you can get more information on where the other side is coming from. And I think that's always helpful in conversations to understand where the other side is coming from. So
it's just no different than like a rap battle at this point.
Well, I think the problem is too, it quickly kind of dissolves down into this personal attacking of the other one.
Right.
Like, where they're not even talking about the topic hardly anymore. It's like, or they are, but while talking about the topic, have to throw some personal jab against either that individual or their belief system. And you're like, can you not just stick to the topic and just talk about what's there? Because there's plenty to talk about without having to, throw another person or another person's religion just under the bus. Because you think it's just because in your mind it's so ridiculous. And both sides do this.
Okay,
so,
I have a question real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are talking about science and religion. And when you talk about it, it's still going to atheist every time.
Okay. I gotcha.
Why do you keep doing that?
Okay, here's why I'm doing it, because you're not hearing like the debates that are on YouTube, for example, or that are having on Christian campuses are not generally between a Christian scientist and then like another Christian apologist,
or a Christian scientist and a atheist scientist.
Okay, let me rephrase it. It often is a Christian scientist versus an atheist scientist.
Oh, it is.
That's often how the debates are set up.
Okay, so
because that draws the biggest crowd, it gets the largest number of people in the seats. Right. And it's generally is more lively that way.
Right.
Because if you're going to have two Christians, for example, arguing over a scientific point, you're generally getting down to, I mean, yes, you can have one Christian scientist speak on.
That's too niche.
It's too, yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
All right.
Or if you have two atheist scientists speaking on two different interpretations or explanations of why something has happened, it's still the same thing. Like they're kind of set up
Okay.
to create the greatest amount of attention and
that's too boring
attraction.
because I know they're both going to hell anyway.
Yeah, and so, but I appreciate you bring that up because not all scientists are atheists,
Right.
right?
But all atheists are scientists.
I won't say that.
Okay.
No, not all atheists are scientists either. And because there's some that are just like, oh, there's no God, whatever.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay.
So I'm sorry, but in particular, when we're talking about these debates, that's so often how it is framed. And so when we talk about the religious person versus the scientist, we're really talking about the atheist who's a scientist and the Christian who's a scientist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just asked you that question, and here's my problem with with the Christian scientist versus atheist scientist debates.
Okay.
It always gets down to the atheist scientist making the Christian one say, well, we don't really know.
Okay.
And I rely on faith
to
not care about this science. Basically. like I guess I just have to go on faith that I don't know science.
Okay.
And so what's the point in like, why would a Christian want to go get dunked on that bad? And why do they lose the debate so often when it's so easy for the atheist scientist to get them to go, well, I don't know, it's faith, I guess. And how do you not lose? Like, you lost. like you lost the scientific debate, right. I guess, if you have to bring that into it.
Well, okay. First of all, I think you and I are watching very different YouTube videos.
All right.
Because most of the ones that I'm watching are a scientist who's an atheist and a scientist who is a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And they're debating.
Mm-hmm.
So both of them are well-renowned scientists.
Okay.
Who know their stuff. And so they can talk, obviously, from a high scientific level. And so you're not just left with, well, I don't understand what you're talking about, Mr. Scientist, dude. Jesus, right? Like, it moves beyond that.
Okay.
All right. So for example, I don't know if you've ever watched any of the debates with Dr. John Lennox from Oxford.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So he's I
guess I need to watch more debates.
Yeah, he's a brilliant mathematician and scientist who's a believer. So he's debated Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris. And then you've also got others like Dr. Michael Behe, Dr. William Lane Craig, Dr. Francis Collins, Dr. James Tour, and they're all scientists. And most of these guys work at prestigious universities. And they're brilliant, and they're also believers who do an incredible job in these debates or these conversations with scientists who are atheists or who are agnostic and don't hold to their Christian belief or even to a belief that there's any type of God. And I think these guys do a really good job of defending the reasonableness of Christianity.
Okay.
And also, because they are scientists, posing holes in the arguments from their peers in the science community.
Okay.
And so it lends itself to being a really healthy debate. So
maybe I've just only listened to creation evolution ones.
Okay. Yeah. And sometimes you'll just... I think where some of these debates become problematic is when because I have seen some of these where you're talking about, you have like a scientist like Richard Dawkins.
Right.
And he'll be debating a Catholic priest.
Right.
Who doesn't have the scientific training that Dawkins has.
Right.
And if you're looking from a merely purely scientific level, yeah, Dawkins is going to win.
Right.
Because he knows it's an area of expertise he has.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the flip side of that is what you can hear in there is the way that Dawkins so often portrays God in a false way because he's not a theologian. And you'll hear the priest, for example, be able to actually state, well, here is actually a correct view of God or our actual understanding of God.
Science.
Which could be different. And then you'll also, another realm of that is you'll have someone that's a scientist debating someone who's a philosopher.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in just two different camps.
Those are the worst, I think.
They can become the worst.
Yeah. Philosophy is just, it's nonsense.
Well, there's some really, like, I love listening to like Jordan Peterson and,
sure,
things like that. But I also understand why some don't. And there are scientists who just have very little tolerance.
Philosophy is just people
for the abstractness of philosophy. So.
Philosophy is just people trying to restate religion in their own words.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah. I kind of understand. So I understand, like, if you're watching those debates, it always seems like the scientist, quote unquote, wins the science argument.
Right.
Because they're the scientist.
Yes.
It makes sense. I think the more interesting discussions and debates are when it's two scientists debating one another who happen to come from two very different belief systems. One being a Christian, one being an atheist, one being a Muslim, one being an atheist. That's more interesting to me.
So when you have two scientists who are from different religions, what are we, like, are they picking a topic where there's contention?
Generally speaking, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the way the debates are set, right?
Right.
It can't be there are times where you'll see, for example, on YouTube, you'll find not debates, but conversations around a topic because they're coming at it from different perspectives, but they're not necessarily debating harshly with one another. But the debate is usually on a point where, yes, there's disagreement. And so that's the whole purpose of the debate.
The conversations always get a little debatey.
And conversations can become that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you have a lot of different, if you have several, like 3 or 4 individuals with differing viewpoints. That's always really, it's always interesting. And it's interesting to see, especially when there's like 3 or 4, it's interesting to see when people pair up to defend each other or their argument,
right,
and they're like on completely
yes,
differing views on other stances. And so I find that intriguing too.